guys, welcome back to my channel. Do I have an excuse for it being this long since the last video? Yes. So as you guys know, fall season is upon us. The weather is changing, and your girl got sick. Not only did she get sick, she lost her voice. So of course that hindered me from recording. And once I got my voice back, it was a whole lot. I had this cough, which I'm still kind of dealing with. It comes and goes when it wants. So while it was, of course, annoying that I wasn't able to record anything to put out, it was also just like a blessing in disguise because I got a lot of other things done. And so that's why I'm so excited for today's video. As you guys see in the title, I'm going to be reviewing my last 3 thriller reads. Now, y'all, I have said it multiple times on this channel that I love thrillers. My top 3 genres are romance, fantasy, and thrillers. I like to throw in a thriller between every 2 or so like romance or fantasy books. I was like, Kayla, you need a change. You need to switch it up or something, because I was going through a really bad reading slump and nothing was speaking to me when I was trying to read. So that brings us to these 3 books I'm going to talk to you guys about today. The first book up is The Life She Wants by J.M. Hewitt. I read this book in a couple hours, y'all. Like, she's not that thick, she's not that big, so I knew it wasn't gonna take me long. And I was hoping that it was going to be a quick read, which is precisely why I bought it. I got it at Ollie's for $1.99. Give it up for Ollie's. I feel like people sleep on Ollie's. Like, if you want affordable books, go to Ollie's. Like, I've never spent more than probably like $5.99 on a book. Case in point. On Goodreads, I gave this a rating of 3 stars. I'm kind of leaning towards 2 stars now that I'm here, because this book is a whole lot. Now, I'm going to explain this very badly, the same way I was explaining this to my friend, because I was so frustrated in what was going on. So let me give you the lay of the land. So the story revolves around Paula and Tommy, who are going through a bit of a rough patch in their marriage during the course of this book. Paula is like really wanting to have kids. They're both in their 30s, but Tommy is like, he keeps putting it off. Like, every time it comes up and she's like, you know, like, start a family, like, you know, when are we gonna start having kids? And it kind of just turns into not necessarily like an argument, but he's very dismissive of the fact that like she's pushing to want to have kids. And each time the conversation gets brought up, he's always just like, he always shuts her up with a gift. And I was like, Miss Ma'am, like, the first few gifts I was like, okay, I kind of see what he did there, because like one of them was an SUV, so I'm like, okay, big car, children. And then when the conversation came up again, then I think the last one was the house that they're living in now, which has a lot of bedrooms in it. So in my mind, if I was Paula, I'm like, okay, me and you, we are in one room, all these other bedrooms, children, we're about to fill them up with kids. No. And I wish that she had caught on to the fact that he was just, once again, shutting her up with gifts to kind of just be like, oh, here, but I'm gonna keep like putting this on pause because I know that I can get you to be quiet if I do this one thing. Trash. Now, then we have Anna, who is our antagonist of the story. And as the title goes, you know, the life that she wants, she sees Paula and Tommy. They're a well-off couple. Paula has given up her career to be a stay-at-home wife and would have been mom, but you know, and so she's of course going through a lot of emotions, and I wouldn't say she was necessarily complaining, but of course, like, when you are going through troubles in your marriage, there are going to be things that you do overlook and you quote unquote might not be grateful for. So Paula is having a conversation with a friend of hers, and that's when Anna overhears them. Anna is, for a lack of a better term, self-made. And she just goes through life, like, just figuring it out on her own. She's a caretaker for this really elderly man. And I don't want to give away too much, but Anna is in the head. And so, obviously, from the gist of the title, The Life That She Wants, Anna sees the relationship between Paula and Tommy, and she's like, oh, I'm gonna take your man. All these characters end up together because Tommy gets him and Paula some like little romantic getaway cruise, I believe to like Alaska or somewhere to like see the Northern Lights. Me personally, I don't do like well in the cold. If I hear cruise, I'm thinking tropical island, like heat, ocean sort of thing. I'm not really thinking snow, sweaters, boots. That's not where my mind goes, but I mean, seeing the Northern Lights, I feel like that's just such a really cool opportunity. It's such an amazing experience. So yeah, that's a cute couple thing to do. But once again, this was just something to appease Paula so she would leave him alone about the baby thing. So Anna finds out about their cruise by stalking Paula's Facebook page. And so that's where a majority of the story takes place, on this cruise. They end up side by side together, which of course Anna constructed. But can I just say, and I said this to my mom and I repeated it to my friend, so I feel like I can say it to you guys. You know, when you have like stories like this where it's like the woman, because it's normally the woman who sees whatever couple and decides that she wants the man or whatever, so she's like, oh, I'm about to take your man. I really feel like you should be good at your job. Like, if this is your one role to play in said book, do it well. The way I said it was, if you're gonna be a slut, at least be a good one. Sis wasn't giving seductive. It wasn't giving, oh, I'm about to make your man cheat on me. It wasn't, and I don't condone cheating. I don't condone this behavior whatsoever. For the sake of the book, this is just what I'm talking about. And it was just like, this can't really be how like she's going about this. And if anything, while she was trying to get Tommy's attention and like also make Paula seem like she was going crazy and like get in between them, she was also doing a lot of dumb things that criminals just shouldn't do. Like, you already committed a crime, multiple crimes, but we watched you commit a crime before you got on this cruise, and you are continuing to do crimes, and you're just not good at it. You're really kind of just terrible at your role. And that's one of the main frustrations I had, because it was like, you're making dumb mistakes, you're making rookie mistakes, and I'm supposed to not necessarily root for you, but in some ways it's kind of like, okay, you're one of the main people whose point of views that we're getting. Sis, you're giving us nothing. And now, in Anna's defense, because she was getting in Miss Paula's head, I will say that. The little ways that she was kind of constructing things to make it seem like Paula was going insane, or that she was being over dramatic, and really just, you know, the psychological part of just like manipulating her and gaslighting her to make Tommy really annoyed with her and everything. She was doing a rather good job at that. I will give her that. The seductive part, she was doing a horrible job, but that whole thing, like her plans of like getting at Paula and like getting in her head, I will give her props for that, because she was eating up Sis, and I was feeling really bad for her, because it was like, dang, you can't catch a break. But even as I say that, I feel like Paula was so sure within herself, and she was so like hyper focused on like what she wanted. Like, the whole point of them going on this cruise was to try and do better in their relationship. And then of course for Paula was like, I want to have a baby. And she was seeing all the things. Like, she wasn't missing the fact that like Tommy was going off and doing whatever, sometimes with Anna, with some of the other guys that he was with. And let's talk about that, because you want me to root for a relationship that is extremely toxic, and they should be signing divorce papers. I was really hoping that Tommy was gonna die. I didn't know how he was going to, because at the end of the day, both women wanted him, so him dying doesn't necessarily make any sense. But to the core of me, guys, I did not want him to live, because he is one of the most infuriating characters I've ever read in a book. Let's get into it. So first off, you already neglect your wife. She gave up her career for you. She takes care of you, and she does all these things for you, and you can't give her the simple thing of being a mom. Like, you always say, oh, once this is over, oh, this isn't a good time, and this and this and this. It comes to a point where it's like, when do the excuses end? When is there gonna be something where it's like, you can't say, oh, this is the reason why we can't have kids anymore because of this. There's no reason. You guys are getting to an age where it's gonna start being hard for her to conceive, to be able to have a child. So why? That. And then you got this cruise for you guys to go on to last minute, by the way. It wasn't something he was planning for forever and a day. This was a last minute setup. You go on this cruise, and then you barely spend time with your wife. He made a couple of friends at the bar and was out with them almost every chapter. It was mainly just Paula and Anna, and like if Anna ran into them coincidentally, or he was just off by himself. And it's like, you're supposed to be on this trip together. This is supposed to be a couple's trip, and your couple is not together. Like, what are you doing? You can see in different ways how he was starting to look at Anna with a little like, I see you. That was bound to happen, because if that's what her goal was, once again, she wasn't doing a very good job. And I say that, not that there's a right way to be a homewrecker. This is just like, we see a lot of movies, we see a lot of TV shows, there's a lot of books on characters who are deemed the homewrecker, and some of them did a really good job. Anna just didn't. That's all I'm saying. There were so many times throughout this book where I would just close it and just sit there. It was just like, why? How? What in God's name is going on? I don't understand how all three of these characters can be so infuriating and just kind of like graining in my ear. I couldn't hear them talking, but it was as if I could, and it was just like, y'all, no. And one thing about me, when I read these books, I really like thrillers for the psychological feel. If you can make me feel like I'm really a part of the story and I'm almost kind of being gaslit at the same time, I feel like you're doing your job, because that's the point of a thriller. You're supposed to keep me on my toes. You're supposed to make me feel like I'm going down this one path. When that plot twist hits, then it's kind of like, oh my gosh, like I thought I could trust you and that we were going on this path together, but ultimately you were leading me astray. That's how they're supposed to work. I knew what was gonna happen. I knew, because then we were getting like flashbacks from one of the characters, and I knew it was a female because they kept referring to the person as her, she, and everything. They never said the name until a good point in the book, but I knew who it was. Everything in me was like, I know this is who it's about to be about, and I was right. And then when it came to the big fight scene, which there's always some big fight scene at the end of these books, I didn't really care for the extra plot twist that we got. To me, it didn't make any sense because, if I say that, I'll spoil it. But like, it didn't correlate to me, and it didn't necessarily even matter how it happened. It was just like, oh. What I will say is I did like the fact that at the end of the book, Paula was eating up her husband, because this whole time, like, while Paula's going through all these things and feeling like she's losing her mind, and like obviously seeing her husband kind of flirting a little bit or getting just a bit too close to Anna, she's going off her rocker, and he's been gaslighting her too, not believing her. He's such a piece of work. He is not a good husband and whatsoever. Like, never gives her the benefit of the doubt, never believes her. He always just like goes straight to like, you're over dramatic, like you're being crazy. That's what he does, and I hate him for it. She flipped the script on him and started giving him the same sort of medicine that he had been giving her. I was like, and keep doing it, because remember who you are. So yeah, this isn't a book I'm probably ever gonna read again. The next book that I read is The Surrogate Mother by Freida McFadden. I actually listened to this on Spotify, so it was my audio book, and I was actually very underwhelmed with this book. This book made me angry more than any other feeling, because when you hear like The Surrogate Mother, you can kind of like infer how it's gonna go, like, and it's a thriller. You can put two and two together, but I thought this was a newer book of Freida McFadden's. I'm a really big fan of her books. I've always really enjoyed the books that I've read by her, so I was like, okay, like, I didn't know she put out a new book. But this book actually came out in 2022, so I'm thinking maybe just I've never noticed it, or it's just now coming out in stores, because I've never seen it out in stores before. But regardless of all that, I gave this book 3 stars, and I'm pretty firm in that decision. I feel like there are a lot of things that were really good and that worked, but the things that didn't outweighed a lot of the things that I liked, unfortunately. This is my first book by her that I won't say I didn't enjoy it, but I just didn't care for it. Like, it was just a lackluster experience. And I actually was talking with someone back and forth on TikTok who was reading it at the same time. I finished it before she did, so I have to go back and figure out if she's finished with it now, so we can kind of discuss it, because I have no one to talk to about this. A lot of the chapters were pretty short. I feel like the story moved along very well until we got to the end. The end is so rushed, and it just feels like a pile of things just thrown on to it. But then it also, like, low-key feels like nothing's happening. I don't know what was going on. What I will give this book is that there were different points where I was like, oh, you're the bad guy. Or no, now I don't trust you. Now you're being whatever. I was thrown for a loop for sure with a lot of these characters that you would think you're supposed to trust and that are supposed to be like on the side of the people. I was very much like, no, you're giving weird energy right now, and I'm not really sure if we're on the same team. This book focuses on Abby and Sam. They are a young couple who have been struggling to conceive. They've tried IVF and they've tried adoption, but at the beginning of the book, their adoption fell through at the last minute. And so Abby's just been really going through it because she really wants to be a mom, and all these things that seems like it's supposed to work, supposed to help them have a baby, haven't. So it's been really toying with her, and it's toying with her husband Sam, but all in all, like, they still love each other. It hasn't changed their relationship or whatsoever. It's just, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, we both really want these things. We both want a family, and we haven't been able to get it. So it's hard and it's frustrating, but I really loved how sweet Sam was on Abby. Like, they were just such a cute couple. In comes Monica, who is Abby's assistant and our antagonist. Now, can I just say, if I was in Abby's position and I was going through all these things, me and my husband just talked about looking at adopting an older child instead of trying to adopt a newborn. All of these things, we just discussed these things, and I was like, okay, like, yeah, let's go with it. We've never really considered surrogacy, but regardless of all of that, me and my husband made a decision. We had a conversation, so like, leave it at that. If some woman who I know, but like I really don't know, at the same time, and oddly looks like me because they kept saying how much Monica looked like Abby, came in my office and was like, I'll be your surrogate, the answer would be no. Which the answer was, like, Abby was very put off by, like, what do you mean you'll be my surrogate? Like, do you know what that means to be a surrogate? Like, giving your body up for 9 months, sometimes over 9 months, to have someone else's child, like the things that you have to go through. There's a lot of people who do like surrogacy and like I think it's amazing, but there are reasons why you go through like an agency with stuff like this. Like, you don't just find someone willy-nilly because of situations like this. But regardless, Monica's like, yeah, like, I'll be your surrogate, like all these things, like I need money to go back to school, so like this is like such a great arrangement. And Abby is kind of put off by it, but at the same time, like, she's kind of warming up to it, like, oh yeah, maybe that will be a good idea. And what I found so incredibly hilarious was literally the next chapter when she's like, oh yeah, like, I just have to talk to Sam about it. The next chapter, the first things in the next chapter was, no, absolutely not happening. Because like, yeah, Sam, I was like, thank you, because your wife is going nuts thinking that y'all agreeing to have her assistant be your surrogate was a good idea. Like, you want your surrogate, this young woman who you said all these things about, who is so beautiful and looks like you and all whatever, you want her to be carrying your husband's child, because that's ultimately what surrogacy is. I know there are some ways where people can have the egg and the sperm of like the two parents inside of another woman, so it's biologically both the parents, but in this case, it would be Monica's and Sam's. That don't sit right with me, honestly, and I don't feel like Abby gave it much thought. Like, she didn't really consider it very well. And ultimately, of course, because it's called the Surrogate Mother, like, it wasn't like it wasn't gonna happen. They ultimately go through with it. And what I don't like, and it's a thing that is reoccurring in a lot of Freida McFadden books. It's like, they remember conversations in which a person has contradicted themselves, and now they're sitting there and they're like, is that what I heard? Like, maybe that was a different conversation, like da-da-da-da. But it's like, you very vividly just remember that conversation in which this person said this thing, and now in present time, they said something different, or whatever else has happened. It's like, that's not what you said before. Why are you now in your head thinking, oh no, that couldn't have happened? Like, no, maybe I'm imagining it, or it was somebody else. Like, what's going through your head that's making you second guess yourself? When times like this comes, your memory is going to serve you right. It's going to come right when you need it, and you have to be able to trust your mind and know that it's not going to do you wrong. But Abby was not doing any of that. Abby's work life kind of started to go haywire, where she was missing deadlines, she was missing meetings and emails and all these things. And it's like, of course for her, it's like, how am I so off my game? Never once occurred to her that maybe the person who's pregnant with your husband's child, who has access to your email and your schedule, is jacking stuff up. Like, that never crossed her mind. As soon as like that first time where it was like she was confused about a meeting that was coming up, and she looked at her calendar and she saw it, she was like, how did I miss that, or how did I not know? I'd been like, don't you have someone who does this stuff for you? I'm not sure if like you manually put this stuff in yourself, but I know you have an assistant who's supposed to be doing this stuff for you and actually should be reminding you of these things. So why isn't she doing her job? You guys are getting what I'm saying. The same thing when like I said with like appointments, the ultrasound appointments, she was starting to miss them. And I hated it so bad because at this point, like Sam was like really just like not with it. He was so uncomfortable with the whole thing. But Miss Girl said one little thing about math and like liking math because he's a math professor, and he just got all smiley, grinny, just like, oh my gosh, you like math, like so nerd. And it was like, buddy boy, like I need you to stay on Abby's side. But when she missed the first appointment and they came out all smiling and just like happy-go-lucky, like they're a couple or whatever, and Abby's like, what's going on? Like the ultrasound was supposed to be at 2 and they're both like, no, it was at 1. Me going looking at my husband. I don't care if you thought that I was busy saving the world. I was Superwoman out here fighting whatever villain. I don't care. If you know that I wanted to be at this appointment, call a girl, text a girl. I don't care what you think that I'm doing and I'm so busy or whatever. Message me and just be like, hey, the appointment's at this time. Hope you can make it. Or like, are you gonna be able to make it? Anything like that. That's all you gotta do. Because then at least then she'd have realized like, oh my gosh, like, what do you mean it's at 1? And she could have at least been there. She might have been a little bit late, but to like completely miss it, it's nuts. And so she's looking at them like the appointment was at 2. And she looking at Monica like, girl, you told me the appointment's at 2. And Monica's like, no, girl, I told you it was at 1. Like, it's in your calendar. The appointment was at 1. So Abby looks in her calendar and lo and behold, there's the appointment at 1 o'clock. And she's like, how did I miss that? And I'm like, Miss Girl, because the fact that it happened over and over. And then when, you know, the appointment was over and they're all standing out there, the doctor then goes, oh, whatever about Monica and your husband. Tell me why none of them hoes corrected her, which I find baffling because you as my husband, why didn't you say something like, oh no, like this isn't my wife. Monica, why didn't you say this isn't my husband? Like it was so weird. And then Monica was calling Sam Sammy and they're texting back and forth. And it was just all these weird things. All these things are going on. Abby's been making like these little mistakes at work, which is kind of jeopardizing like what they've got going on, which has been mostly Monica's fault, but she's not cluing into that yet. There's a drug test coming up at work. So she was previously on sleeping pills, but then she stopped taking them just to make sure like that they didn't see anything in her urine or whatever. Lo and behold, the results come back and it comes back positive for meth. As a reader, I'm like, I've been with you this whole time. You ain't said nothing about being on meth or like taking meth. But when you think about it, Monica, assistant, brings her coffee basically every morning. Sis was drugging her. And so that whole thing was going on. Of course, she's just like, there's no way meth could somehow be in my system. And she literally goes, is there some way I could be a meth addict and not know it? And I just tried to go back and find the actual line so I can get it right. And of course, it's nowhere to be found. But it's just like baffling to me because it's like, why are you asking me how you could have been on meth and not known it? Sis, I don't know. It was just such a weird thing to say because it's like, why are you questioning whether or not you've been taking meth? If you know you haven't been taking meth and you haven't been taking meth, like it's as simple as that, honestly. But there were a lot of instances where I was even like, I was looking at Sam sideways because I was like, why are you acting like this? Like you're making me question whether or not you're in on this or something with Monica. But then it wouldn't have made sense. But then also I was like, well, Abby is the one who makes the most money between the two of them, and like they kept talking about whatever trust fund and da 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 whatever, so she has money. And I was like, oh, okay, so what if Sam and Monica were like, we're gonna do this whole like arrangement and then somehow off Abby so that way we can get her money and live off our money and then we can have our child. That's what I was thinking, because it was something that like was always said, that like how attractive Sam was, and like since he's a professor, a lot of the girls flirting with him and everything like that. I was looking at him sideways a good little bit. But like I said, ultimately, this book was just very underwhelming. Like by the time we got to the end and like the little plot twist, I kind of figured, I was like, what if this is that? And that was this. And I was right. And I hate to be right in situations like that. I want to be wrong. I want you to prove me so wrong that like I have to question my IQ level. I really wanted to like it, and I won't say I disliked it. It was okay. I think the ending was rushed, and how they kind of came to like the resolution and then the end or whatever, it didn't feel genuine. But ultimately, of course, I still love her books. So that brings me to the last book, my most recent finish, The Crash by Freida McFadden. What in God's name is this book? All I have to say, if you knew your wife was doing these things and you guys had basically kidnapped a person, a pregnant lady at that, why wouldn't you have already taken her to the hospital? Why wouldn't you have released her sooner than when you did? And honestly, the stakes weren't really raised enough for me. I was thinking it was gonna go so far left than what it did. So this was another one I was kind of underwhelmed. I was like, ooh, it's about to get really dark and twisted. And maybe that says more about me than it does the book. When you think about it, okay, so this is what The Crash is about. This woman, Tegan, she's 8 months pregnant. She wasn't trying to be pregnant, and so it was a lot of circumstances revolving around that. But she was going to go visit her brother, and she ends up crashing, and this man finds her, and he takes her to the cabin where him and his wife live. And while she's there, of course, that's when spooky and weird stuff starts happening or whatever. I'm not really sure how I feel about the events that took place when she got in the cabin. I thought it had something to do with the baby, which ultimately I was right, which in any case, that's you kind of infer that. But one of my biggest problems with this book is Hank and Polly. First of all, Polly is off her rocker. The whole thing needs to be on medications. Like when they were talking about she needed to like talk to her shrink, I was like, please, somebody call her, because Polly needs to be locked up now. But Mr. Hank, like, you saw what your wife was getting up to. You know the reason why she is keeping Tegan hostage. So why aren't you doing anything? Tegan literally stabbed this woman with a fork. Me as her husband, I'd have been like, that woman is getting out of my house. I don't care what you say to me. She stabbed you with a fork and you're still hell-bent on keeping her here. Yeah, no. There's no way she would have been staying in my basement acting like that. So I don't understand. And I know it's because like he loved her and like he knew that wasn't like really who Polly was. But at the same time, it's like, this is who Polly is. I will say I did like this book a bit better than the other two. But once we got towards the end, it was again just like, oh. I feel like I was hoping for more. And I will say, happy ending at the end. Like everybody, whatever, it was cool. I did like the resolve, but still it was just like, we're just gonna put past what happened and nobody's gonna say anything. Hi guys, so obviously outfit change, hair change. So I've really been struggling when I'm recording these videos since I'm doing them on my phone. My phone loses storage pretty quickly. And so in the process of recording and having to stop and move it to my computer prematurely and all of that, I deleted the last bit of this video, but that's okay. I'm going to finish it really quickly because this video is now so incredibly late. I just kept putting it off and just allowing frustrations to get the best of me, but no more. To finish off talking about The Crash, I really did enjoy that book. Previously, I did believe that it was going to be like up there with the Housemate series, but now that I've read The Teacher by Freida McFadden, which I really did enjoy that book now. I have many things to say about that. That's going to be for a separate video. I pretty much touched on my likes and dislikes for The Crash. I just feel like the ending just kind of seemed like, okay, we're just gonna sweep under the rug all the crimes that people are committing, and we're not really just gonna like talk about it. Which I mean, if everyone's kind of like cool and not really wanting to like address the matter any further, then like I guess. But for me, it was just kind of like, I don't know, it's not my life. I wasn't a part of it. So if old girl was cool and she didn't want no more mess, she didn't want to prolong it anymore, then like more power to you, babe. Just like that, we are at the end of today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're not already, make sure you guys are following me on Instagram and TikTok at Kayla Sierra. Like always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel and share this with all your friends. I've been Kayla Sierra, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.